In this video, we'll work with conditions. It changed everything in programming when we can actually do conditions. So let's start with that. A condition starts with a statement which is if. And then you'll need to put a condition. Let's say if x superior to 1, then something should happen. So let's do that with an actual variable. We'll define a variable which will be age, and I'll say I am 17. And then we'll create condition to know if you're authorized to vote. So if age is superior than 18 or superior or equal, assuming you can start voting at 18, it depends the country where you're in. In France it's like that, in the US it might be 21. So if your age is superior than 18, then we'll print, you can vote. Now, if your age is lower than 18, see that here I use the equal and here I don't use the equal because I cannot have two different answers for 18. It would work, but it would not be ideal because both will be executed. Actually, I can show you. So look, then print you cannot vote. So if I do it like this, it says, hey, you cannot vote because I'm 17, so it's easy. But if I was 18, both are good. So the first thing you can do is say, hey, I want to consider only one answer, one possibility, right? So I would say if something, then do this, and then it's finished. So to do this, I can use Elif, which means else if. So the difference means, okay, if the first condition is good, then you'll do what we have in the first condition and you'll stop here. Now, if it's not right, and let's say I'm not 18, then you'll continue and you'll go with the next one, right? So that's one way to do it. But the best way is, of course, for you to look at the different options you have and be sure that you don't have some kind of overlap. So if I'm 18, it's with the superior equal, I can vote. And if I'm not 18, then I'm less than 18, then I cannot vote. So you can do that with if or with else if. What is important to understand here is the difference between both. So first, let's look at how we've been writing all this, right? So first you see if, and you see it's a different color because it's recognized as a statement for a condition. Then there is a variable. It could have been a number, but we'll do it with a variable so we can change it. Then we'll have a condition, and then we'll have to what we're comparing this. So at the end of the day, you know what this is, right? This full thing from age up to the 8, it's a Boolean, right? It will be true or false. So basically that's how it works. If it's true, then I can show you here, we can print that. We'll print the condition and we're good. So if it's true, then if true, this will happen. If it's not true, and I can change the number, then this one will not be taken into consideration because it's not happening, it's false. So if it's false, it's going to be ignored. And then we'll look at the next one. And the next one, age is inferior to 18. We know we put the age at 17. Then here it's going to work. Hence, it's going to be true. Hence, we'll print you cannot vote. You are too young. So it's a big sentence and it's easier to see the difference. Cool, so that's how you create condition. Then what else do we see here? We see there is a column. So that's something we never seen before, the column. We've seen equals, we've seen different things, but never the column. The column means that what will happen if this statement is true comes just after it. If you don't put a column, you'll have an invalid syntax because after an if, the computer, Python, will be expecting a column on the same line. Now, something else that is totally new is this space. You see here, we got if and then we got a space. If I remove it and I just do that, it says indentation error. Why? So first, the fact of doing this spacing like that with tab is called indentation. In many languages, indentation is used, but it's not forced on you. It means that if you don't do it, it would still work. Now in Python, you have to use indentation. That's how Python can know when your if what happened when the if is true, to know where it starts and where it ends, because we could have more than one line. We could say print good luck, and both will be executed. So, well, I need to be more than 18, and it says true because, well, the condition is good. I can delete that, you get it now. And then it says you can vote, good luck. So why? Because I got two different lines with the same indentation, both with this spacing, and this means that they are inside the if. So that's how you should understand that. If there is a tab, then it's going to be inside what we had in the line before them, which was not at the same tab, which was more on the left. So basically, if I'm at this line, print good luck, I can look up and I say, okay, it says another print, but we are on the same indentation. So I need to go up again to see inside what this line is. And here I say, oh, okay, so if age is superior or equal to 18, then everything that will happen is on this block that has been indented to the right. And we could actually have more indentation, and we could have, for instance, a nested condition. So let's say if age, so we know the age, if we go in this category, will be more than 18, right? Including 18. But we could add another condition inside it. And we say if age is superior to 50, we could add anything. We'll print careful with COVID, you are at risk, right? Just randomly an example of something else that would be added for somebody that is a different age. So let's look at this. You see that the indentation now, here we got double tab, right? Why? Because everything, like all those lines, are part of this block. But this line, print careful COVID, with COVID you're at risk, is only for this if, right? So it becomes really easy to read the code, and that's why Python is making this mandatory. Basically, just by looking at the shape of the code, you know which statement, which line is inside which other block, right? You can really define right away. So let's run that. And let's put an age higher than 50. And then this condition works, right? So it's always, is that true, is that false? And then if it's true, then I will be applied. If it's false, then I will not be applied with an if statement. Now, the difference with Elif, again, is with Elif, it will be, you will look at Elif, which is else if, only if the first one is false. So if this if is false, let's say again, when I was, let's say I'm 5, then this will be false. So I don't look at all to what I have inside. So this will be ignored, and this other condition also will be ignored because I'm not getting in that block. I'm directly jumping to the next one, right? So that's what the computer is doing. It's looking at if, okay, is that true? It's false. If it's false, it will just jump after all this block, and it will look at what do we have next. So if it's Elif, it will look at this, and it will print this if this one is true. Now, if it was if, it would also look at it, and it would also print this if it's true. Now, the big difference, again, just to be sure it's really clear, is if this one is true, then everything here will be happening. But then the computer will also look at the next one, and if it's true also, then it will print that also. So most of the time you'll define your condition in a way where you don't want both to be executed, and if we just do it this way, well, you cannot be more than 18 and less than 18, so only one will be executed. But if you think from the computer perspective, the computer will lose some time at looking at this condition, which technically is useless if the first one is already good. So that's why you need to know if you want to use an if or elif. So you will use if those two conditions are independent, and you don't really care if the first one is true or false for the second one, because anyway you want the computer to look at each value and define if you want this condition to be executed. Now, if you know that only one of those different condition will be true, then it's better to use elif, else if, because with elif you will care more about the computing resources of your computer, because you say, okay, hey, if this one is good, then just skip the next one. I don't need to check at it because it's this one or this one. And if you got something which is undefined, you know, for instance, you don't know necessarily what would be the other condition, right? It could be basically, if it's this, then let's say if it's an age more than 50, then I want to say careful with COVID. But if it's any other age, then I want something else. So you can do that with else. Else, and here you'll just put the column, because that's how you know that we're starting the next thing. And you see Jupyter Notebook is doing the indentation automatically for me, so I don't even have to write tab. And then I can print something else. Print hello, just an easy thing. I run this, I need to be more than 18 but less than 50 for this to run, right? You get it, right? So here it's if it's more than 18, with 20 I'm more than 18, then I'm getting inside that block. Now I will print this line, and then I got another condition, and this condition is if the age is higher than 50, you'll print something. If it's anything else, then, which could be, okay, if it's inferior to 50, or if it's equal to 50, or technically if it's not even a number, but you'll have an error here in the comparison, but you got the idea. Then else, for anything else, just print hello. So I do this, and if I just do with like this condition with age equal 20, then it will say, okay, you can vote, because I get inside this block. The age is not superior to 50, so it's in the other block. So this is ignore, and it goes directly to else. If I just do different blocks, I can also do, let's say, elif age is exactly equal. Remember that's double equal, it's important. 49, then print you are 49 years old. And then I could have an else that would be for all the rest, and it would be print, well, let's say you are not 45 years old. So here what is going to happen, and that's, I'll finish this specific example with that. We'll do another one more that doesn't like using NumPy. So let's look at this. Age is equal to 20. If the age is superior to 18, it's true here, right? We're at 20. Then I'll get in that block. Then I'll check, because in that block there is another condition, if the age is more than 50. My age was 20, so it's not the case. So I can totally jump everything that is inside this. And I go to this one. Else, if, elif, the age is exactly equal to 49. Then you'll print this. And then you'll stop. You will not look at the else, right? That's the idea, that you'll do only one of those options. So we'll put the name at 45, and you'll see. But first, now we are at 20. So this condition of age 49 is not true. And else will print you're not 49. So what will happen is exactly this. You can vote, good luck, the two that always appear in this block. And then, well, we just look at which one is true. The one that is true is else. Basically, the two above are false. So you are not 49-year-old. Now, if I change this number and I put it exactly to 49, then it says you are 49, because it stopped here. And it doesn't say you are not 49-year-old, because it's an else, right? If everything was different, if, and you can play with it and change it and just replace everything by if, then you'll see that it would actually happen. Of course, you would need to add a condition to this one, right? So that's it for this example. In case it's not clear, write in the comments that you would like more examples. I'll do another one, because conditions are important. We'll do a totally different one right now, and we'll say, okay, import NumPy as NP. And then we'll say, which we always do like this, we'll play more with NumPy later on, but we always import as something else. We didn't look at what import is yet. We'll look at that later on. Don't worry too much about that. It's super easy. It mainly means I want to use a package, and as mean, well, I change the name so I can easily call it with just MP, and everybody's calling NumPy MP. So let's do that. From NumPy.random, Up. Import rand like this. So what does it do? I'm saying, okay, from the package numpy import rand n so that I can use it. So you've seen I never defined rand n anywhere, but now I'll be able to use it. Oops, rand n with an n, and gives me a random number. And as you can see, it's so with control enter, I can just run it several times without going to the next line. And each time I'm running this, it gives me a different random number. So I don't know what this number will be. So if I want to create condition around this to be able to do something with this number, or to tell you what this number is without showing you this number, I'll need condition. So let's do this. I'll say if, and I'll put this in a variable, say x is random. And then I'll say if x is superior to 0, then print you have a positive number. And else if, because here we are comparing specifically this number, right? So I'll say, hey, is there this, is there that? So Elif x is inferior to 0. So if the number is inferior to 0, then we'll print this is a negative number. And then we still have one option, which would be if x is exactly equal to 0. It can happen. It's a random number. It could actually happen. So let's say we got two different options here. If we wanted to, we could say Elif x is equal to 0, and then print, wow, this is 0. But you don't need to do that. You don't need to define whatever else could happen, because that's the only remaining option. So you could just do this. You can just do else. So when you do this, I run it and say, hey, it is a negative number. Then I run it again and say, hey, you have a positive number. Negative, 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 always negative. Okay, positive, because it's random, right? So the thing is this, I don't need to see the number, because thanks to the condition, I can just give information about this number. So you can use that to create a game, and mostly you can use that to understand better conditions. Now, again, you can do nested conditions. You can say, hey, if this number is higher than 0, but also I want to know more, right? I want to know if it's more than 0.5 or if it's more than 1. We'll do both. So if it's x is superior to 0.5, then we'll print, we already know it will say you have a positive number, and now we can say, and it is pretty big, because we've seen the number most were between 0 and 0.5. So I'll just run that and see. Let's see what happens. So it's a positive one, so it means that this one was not there. I can print the number again so you can actually see it. And let's do this. So here we got a negative number, we got a positive number, we got a positive number, and it's pretty big, which does not happen much. Negative number, positive number, and it's pretty big. So here we see, hey, we can have number higher than 1. So let's do another condition here. We can do it with an if, but again, if I do it with an if, and I'll show you the difference. If I do it with an if and I say, hey, it's superior to 1, then print it is even superior to 1. Wow, because it doesn't happen much. So let's look at this now. I'll run it. Okay, I got a positive number. I'll wait to find one higher than 1 here. So what happened here? It says, hey, your number is 1.5, blah, 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 blah. And you have a positive number. Awesome. Then it says, and it's pretty big. Why? Well, because it's more than 0.5. So we enter this nested condition, and we check if this is true, and it is true here, so this will be print. Now we continue because it's not an if-elif statement. It's if and then another if, so they are independent. And because they are independent, we're looking at this condition again. And here it says, hey, is x also higher to 1, or is x higher to 1? And yes, in this case it's true because we got 1.5. And then it will write, it is even superior to 1. Wow. Now the big difference here, and just to again make sure it's understood, it's for real beginners. If I had Elif here, then this would never have happened because the first one was true and I'm skipping all the rest. So we can do it again, which means technically this condition will never appear because if we got x higher than 0.5, well, if it's higher than 1, it's also higher than 0.5. So the way we wrote the code means that this condition will never happen. I'll show you. Let's find a big number again. Will we be lucky? It's random, so we could be there a while. Here, so wow, we got 2. It's even bigger, but it's not saying, hey, it's bigger to 1 now. Why? Because the way it works is like this: the machine look at the number and says, is that higher than 0? Yes. So I'm getting in this block, right? So everything I have indented. Now you have a positive number. Good. Now I continue. I look at the conditions. If x is higher than 0.5, that's true. It's 2. 2 is higher than 0.5. I will print this. But because it was an elif, then all the rest after this if is ignored. So that's a really important part to understand between if and elif, is that if we have an elif, then it's part of this block and only one will be right, and then I ignore all the rest. If it's another if, then they're independent. I'll check them like we did just before. So we're good with conditions. We'll continue with Python. There are other really interesting stuff to combine with that, like loops, for and while, and then we'll start to be able to do some small project around this. So that's all for today. You know condition now. See you soon.